For roughly 1,000 years, from around 500 to 1500 AD, the vast majority of human beings in Europe woke up each morning knowing they probably wouldn't make it to 40. They lived in one-room houses filled with smoke and animal dung. They watched half their children die before the age of 5. They breathed air so thick with disease that a single cough from a stranger could wipe out their entire village. And yet, somehow, generation after generation, they got up and did it all again. Here's what an ordinary day actually looked like for the medieval peasant. If these help you sleep, a like or subscribe means a lot. Drop where you're listening from in the comments. Always curious who's out there. Alright, we're heading back to medieval England tonight. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, take a second, fix those pillows, pull the blanket up. Because the world we're going into, you're going to want to be settled in somewhere warm and safe. Trust me on this one. Your eyes open to darkness. Not the kind of darkness you're used to, with streetlights bleeding through curtains and the glow of phone chargers and alarm clocks. This is total darkness. The kind that swallows everything. The kind where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. Your name is Edwin, and you're 28 years old. That makes you middle-aged, though you don't think of it that way. You think of yourself as getting on. Your father died at 32 from a fever no one could explain. Your mother is still alive at 41, which makes her ancient. People come from neighbouring villages just to look at her. This woman who has somehow cheated death for 4 decades. The first thing you notice before sight, before thought, is the cold. It has seeped into everything, into the straw beneath you, into the rough wool blanket that barely covers your legs, into your bones. Your wife is pressed against your back, her body the only source of warmth in this single-room cottage that you share with 7 other people. Your 2 children are somewhere nearby. Your mother sleeps in the corner. Your wife's brother and his family take up the other half of the room. And somewhere in the darkness the family pig is snoring. You can smell the pig before you can see anything else. Actually, that's not quite true. You can smell everything. The smoke from last night's fire, still thick in the air because there's no chimney, just a hole in the thatched roof that doesn't work very well. The sour tang of bodies that haven't been properly washed in months. The earthy richness of animal dung from the pig and the 2 chickens. The mustiness of damp straw and rotting wood. This is home. This is every morning. Somewhere outside a rooster crows, and you know it's time. The church bells haven't rung yet, but the rooster is never wrong. Dawn is coming, and dawn means work. Dawn always means work. Getting up is a negotiation with your own body. Your back hurts. It always hurts. You've been working the field since you were 6 years old, and the years have accumulated in your spine like stones in a sack. Your knees pop and creak as you shift your weight. Your fingers are stiff. Your left shoulder hasn't felt right since that day last harvest when you lifted a sack of grain wrong and something shifted. But pain is just part of being alive. Pain means you made it through another night. Pain means you're still here, still breathing, still capable of work. Pain is fine. Pain you can handle. What you can't handle is not eating. Your stomach is already twisting with hunger. Last night's meal, if you can call it that, was a thin pottage of cabbage and some old beans, watered down to stretch for everyone. No meat. There hasn't been meat in weeks. The last time you ate meat was at Michaelmas, when the lord of the manor slaughtered a pig and distributed portions to the villagers who had worked hardest during the harvest. You got a piece about the size of your palm. It tasted like heaven. You can still remember the fat running down your chin. That was 3 months ago. You push yourself up from the straw, careful not to disturb your wife. Agnes works just as hard as you do. Harder, maybe, because her work never stops. She's up before you most days, stoking the fire, mixing the bread dough, tending to the children. And she's pregnant again, 4 months along. You try not to think about what that means. You try not to remember the 2 babies you've already buried. The floor is packed earth, cold and slightly damp. Your bare feet recoil from it, but there's nothing to be done. Your shoes, such as they are, leather worn so thin you can feel every stone through them, are by the door. You shuffle toward them in the darkness, navigating by memory, stepping over bodies and around the pig, who grunts in protest as you pass. The door is a piece of wood held together by hope and rust. You lift the latch and push it open, and the world outside is grey and cold and wet. It has rained during the night. Again. The 3rd time this week. The fields will be muddy, which means the ploughing will be harder, which means your back will hurt more tonight than it does now. You add this fact to the long list of things you've accepted and step outside. The village of Ashford is beginning to stir. Smoke rises from a dozen thatched roofs, thin spirals that twist and disappear into the low grey clouds. Someone is already at the well, a woman whose name you don't remember, pulling water in a wooden bucket. A dog barks somewhere. Children's voices, high and sharp, cut through the morning air. The church bell begins to ring, slow and steady, calling the faithful to morning prayers. You should go to church. You should always go to church. Father William says that missing morning prayers is a sin, that God is watching, that the fires of hell await those who put work before worship. But Father William doesn't have to plough the Lord's field and then plough his own field and then fix the roof where the thatch is leaking, and then help his neighbour build a new fence because the old one fell down in the storm last Tuesday. You compromise. You say a quick prayer right there in your doorway, eyes closed, hands clasped. Please, Lord, let there be enough food, enough strength, enough luck to make it through another day. That's the prayer of every peasant you know. Just let there be enough. The privy is 50 yards from the house, a pit dug into the ground with some wooden boards placed over it. The smell hits you before you're halfway there. Human waste and something else. Something worse. One of the boards has rotted through, and you make a mental note to fix it. Another thing on the list that never gets shorter. You do your business quickly, in the cold, and head back toward the house. Agnes is awake now, standing in the doorway with a look on her face you know well. It's the look that says we need to talk about something, and the something is never good. You brace yourself. The bread is almost gone, she says. You knew this was coming. You've been watching the flour sack shrink for days. But hearing it out loud still hits you like a physical blow. How much left? Enough for today. Maybe tomorrow if we stretch it. You nod. This is the math of peasant life. The constant calculation of survival. How many days until the next harvest? How many months of winter left? How many meals can you squeeze from what you have? The answer is never enough. The answer is always figure it out. I'll talk to the miller, you say. See if he'll extend us credit. Agnes doesn't respond to that. She doesn't need to. The miller's credit comes with interest, and interest is how peasants end up losing everything. But what choice is there? You can't just not eat. You can't tell your children, sorry, no food today, maybe next week. This is the trap that everyone you know is caught in. Work harder to grow more food. but half of everything you grow goes to the Lord. Work the Lord's fields 3 days a week, but that's 3 days you can't spend on your own land. Pay the mill fee to grind your grain, but the fee keeps going up. Pay the oven fee to bake your bread, because baking in your own fire is forbidden. Pay the church tithe, 10% of everything, because God demands it. Pay and pay and pay until there's nothing left to pay with. Your grandfather used to talk about the old days, before the great sickness came, before half the village died in a single summer, and bodies piled up faster than anyone could bury them. That was 40 years ago, before you were born, but the village still hasn't recovered. Half the houses are abandoned, their roofs caved in, their gardens overgrown. The Lord still demands the same amount of work, the same amount of grain, but there are half as many hands to do it. You try not to think about the sickness. Everyone tries not to think about it, but sometimes, late at night, you hear the stories, the boils that appeared in people's armpits and groins, swelling to the size of apples, the fever that burned so hot people lost their minds, the blackening of fingers and toes as if the flesh was being cooked from the inside. They say it came from abroad, carried on ships, spread by fleas, moved through the air like a curse. They say God was angry. They say the Jews poisoned the wells. They say a lot of things. All you know is that your father's father watched his entire family die in the space of 2 weeks, and he never spoke of it again. But that was a long time ago. The sickness hasn't returned. Not yet. You push these thoughts away and focus on what's in front of you. Breakfast is a cup of small beer, and a piece of bread so hard you have to soak it in the beer to chew it. The bread is made from barley and rye, coarse and dark, nothing like the fine white bread the Lord eats. You've tasted white bread exactly once, at a feast, and you still dream about it sometimes. The children are awake now, your son Edmund, who is 5, and your daughter Mary, who is 3. They're sitting by the fire, sleepy-eyed and hungry. Agnes gives them each a piece of bread and a little milk from the goat. The goat is your most valuable possession, worth more than the cottage itself. You check on her every night before you sleep and every morning when you wake. Losing the goat would mean losing everything. Edmund asks if he can come to the fields today. Not today, you tell him. The mud is too deep. This is a lie. The truth is that you want him to have 1 more year of childhood, 1 more year before his body starts to break down like yours. 1 more year before he learns what it really means to be a peasant. He'll learn soon enough. You finish your bread and beer and head for the door. The sun is up now, a pale disk behind the clouds, providing light but precious little warmth. The world is wet and grey and cold, and it will be wet and grey and cold for months to come. Agnes catches your arm as you pass. "Be careful," she says. You don't ask what she means. You both know. Be careful of the mud that can suck you down. Be careful of the tools that can cut and crush. Be careful of the Lord's reeve, who watches everything, who reports everything, who can make your life a misery if he decides you're not working hard enough. Be careful of the 1,000 things that can kill a peasant. I will, you say, and you mean it, even though you both know that careful only goes so far. You step out into the morning, and the day begins. The walk to the Lord's field takes you through the centre of the village, past the church with its stone walls and wooden spire, the only building made of something other than wattle and daub, past the blacksmith's forge, already hot and clanging, past the carpenter's shop and the weaver's cottage and the house where old Margaret lives alone now that her husband died of the coughing sickness last winter. Everyone you pass looks tired. Everyone looks hungry. Everyone looks like they're carrying something heavy, even when their hands are empty. This is the weight of medieval life. Not just the physical labour, though that's crushing enough. It's the knowledge that you are trapped, that your father was trapped, and his father before him, and that your son will be trapped too. That the Lord owns the land you work, the house you live in, the very bread you eat. That you need his permission to marry, to travel, to die. That you're not a free person in any sense that matters. Sometimes, late at night, you imagine what it would be like to leave, to pack up your family and walk away, find some distant town where no one knows you, start fresh. But you know what happens to peasants who run. The Lord sends men after them. They're brought back in chains. They're whipped in the village square as a lesson to others. And even if you somehow escaped, even if you made it to some faraway place, what would you do? This is all you know. The fields are all you know. The rhythm of planting and harvesting and surviving is all you know. So you stay, you work, you pray for enough. And maybe, if you're lucky, you live to see another spring. The Lord's field stretches out before you like a punishment. 300 acres of mud and stubble waiting to be ploughed. And not just ploughed, harrowed, seeded, tended, harvested. All of it by hand, all of it by muscle and sweat and sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up. You're not alone out here. A dozen other men from the village are already at work, bent over their tools, breath steaming in the cold air. You recognise each of them by posture alone. There's John the miller's son, broad-shouldered and slow, William the thatcher, skinny as a rake, working twice as fast to keep warm, old Robert, who claims to be 50 years old, which would make him the oldest man any of you have ever met. Nobody talks much this early. Talking takes energy, and energy is a thing you hoard like gold. You find your plough where you left it yesterday, half buried in mud. The ox that pulls it, a tired beast named Brownie that belongs to the village rather than any one person, is already harnessed and waiting. Brownie is 12 years old, ancient for an ox. His ribs show through his hide, and his eyes have that glazed look that animals get when they've simply stopped caring. You know the feeling. The first hour is always the worst. Your body hasn't warmed up yet. Your muscles are stiff. Your joints are creaking. And every step through the mud feels like walking through wet clay. Which it is, basically. The plough catches on roots and stones, jerking your arms in their sockets. Brownie plods forward at his own pace, ignoring your commands because Brownie stopped listening to anyone years ago. You fall into the rhythm anyway. Step, push, guide, step, push, guide. The blade cuts through the earth, turning over dark soil that smells of rain and rot. Behind you, a straight furrow stretches back toward the edge of the field. Ahead of you, endless mud. This is what your life looks like from above. A man and an ox moving slowly across a brown expanse under a grey sky. Repeat forever. Your father did this same work on this same field. So did his father. So will your son, if he lives long enough. The furrows you're cutting now are probably in the same places as furrows cut 100 years ago. Nothing changes. Nothing ever changes, except when everything changes at once. You try not to think about the wars, but out here, alone with your thoughts in the endless mud, it's hard not to. Everyone in the village has lost someone. John's older brother marched off with the Lord's army 6 years ago and never came back. William's father was conscripted during the Troubles with France and returned missing 3 fingers and most of his mind. Old Robert, if you can get him drunk enough, will tell you about the time he watched 200 men die in a single afternoon, cut down in a field not so different from this one, fighting over a castle whose name he can't even remember. The thing about being a peasant is that you have no say in any of it. When the Lord says march, you march. When the king says fight, you fight. Doesn't matter that you've never held a sword in your life, that your only weapon is a farming tool, that you have no armour and no training and no idea what you're supposed to do when some knight on horseback comes charging at you with a lance. They don't give you armour, they don't give you weapons, you bring your own, a knife, a club, maybe a bow if you're lucky enough to own one, and you stand in a line with other men just like you, farmers and smiths and millers' sons, facing real soldiers who've trained for this their whole lives. The lucky ones come home, the unlucky ones don't, and the ones in between, like William's father, come home as something less than what they were. You go anyway, because the alternative is worse. Your grandfather talked about the Northmen sometimes, the raiders who came from across the sea, back when his grandfather was young. They appeared without warning, sailing up the rivers in their dragon-headed ships, burning everything they touched. Whole villages wiped out in a single night. Women and children carried off and sold in markets across the sea. Men killed where they stood or worked to death as slaves. That was 200 years ago, give or take. The Northmen don't come anymore, but the fear of them, passed down through generations, still lives in the back of every peasant's mind. The fear that someday, without warning, everything you have will be taken from you. Your home, your family, your life. And then there was the conqueror. Your grandmother used to whisper about what happened in the north after the new king took the throne, how his army swept through, burning crops and slaughtering livestock, making sure nobody who lived there could ever rebel again. Whole regions emptied, people starving by the thousands, land left so ruined that nothing grew for years. That was before anyone you know was born. But the stories survive, the warnings: don't draw attention, don't make trouble, keep your head down, and pray the powerful men forget you exist. It happened before, it could happen again. The sun climbs higher, though you can barely tell through the clouds. By mid-morning you've ploughed maybe a 1/4 acre. Your shoulders are burning. Your lower back has moved past pain into a kind of numb throbbing. Your hands, wrapped in scraps of cloth to protect against blisters, are wet with sweat and mud. You stop to rest, leaning against the plough handle, breathing hard. Brownie doesn't seem to notice. He just stands there, chewing on nothing, staring at something only he can see. From across the field you hear shouting. You look up. The reeve is coming. The reeve is the Lord's man, the one who makes sure all of us do what we're supposed to do. His name is Geoffrey, and he's a peasant himself, technically, but he doesn't act like one. He wears better clothes than the rest of us. He eats better food. He has a horse, for God's sake. A horse! And he has power. Not the power of a lord or a knight, but something almost worse. The power of a man who can make your life miserable in 1,000 small ways. The power to assign you the worst sections of the field, to report you for slacking, to add extra days to your labour service for reasons he doesn't have to explain. Everyone hates Geoffrey. Everyone fears him. Everyone smiles and nods when he passes. You do the same now. Edwin, he says, reining up beside you. You're behind. I know, you say. The mud's thick today. Mud's thick for everyone. You're still behind. You don't argue. Arguing with Geoffrey never helps. You just nod and say you'll work faster and hope he moves on to bother someone else. He doesn't move on. The Lord's expecting guests next week, Geoffrey says. There's going to be a feast. We need extra hands in the manor house. Your stomach drops. Extra hands means extra work. Work you won't be paid for. Work that will take time away from your own fields, your own crops, your own survival. When, you ask? Starting tomorrow, you and 3 others. 4 days, maybe 5. 4 days, 5 days. That's 5 days you won't be preparing your own land for spring planting. 5 days your family will have to manage without you. 5 days closer to the edge of ruin. But what can you say? Nothing. There's nothing to say. The Lord wants extra hands, so extra hands he'll get. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. You nod again, and Geoffrey rides off to ruin someone else's morning. The rest of the day blurs together. Plough, rest. Plough, rest. Your body moves on its own while your mind wanders to other places. To Agnes, back at the cottage, kneading dough that's mostly water and hope. To Edmund and Mary, too young to understand why. Their father is never home. Why there's never enough food. Why everything is so hard. You think about the baby coming. Another mouth to feed. Another body to clothe. Another soul to worry about in a world that seems designed to crush souls. And you think about all the things that could go wrong. Disease. There's always disease. Last winter a sickness swept through the village and took 7 people, including 2 children. Nobody knew what it was or where it came from. One day you're fine. The next day you're coughing blood. And the day after that they're digging your grave. The physicians, if you can call them that, are no help. They show up with their masks and their herbs and their talk about bad air and humours, and then the patient dies anyway and they collect their fee and leave. The real medicine, such as it is, comes from old Martha, who lives at the edge of the village and knows which plants cure headaches and which ones stop bleeding. But even Martha can't fix a fever that burns too hot. Even Martha can't bring back a child who stopped breathing in the night. Injury. One wrong step, one moment of carelessness, and you're done. A broken leg doesn't just hurt. It means you can't work. And if you can't work, you can't eat. And if you can't eat, your family can't eat. And then, you've seen it happen. A man named Harold, 3 years back, fell from a ladder while thatching a roof. His leg bent in ways legs shouldn't bend. For 2 weeks he lay in his cottage, sweating and moaning, while the bone tried to heal itself crooked. Then the wound went bad, turned green, started to smell. By the time they took the leg off, it was too late. The poison had spread. His widow and children begged in the church doorway for 6 months before the Lord took pity and gave them work in the manor kitchen. You don't finish that thought. You never finish that thought. The sun begins to sink behind the clouds, turning the grey sky a slightly darker grey. You've ploughed maybe 1/2 acre today. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But your body has nothing left to give. And the light is fading, and even Geoffrey can't expect you to work in the dark. You unhitch Brownie and lead him back to the village stable. He moves even slower now than he did this morning, if that's possible. You pat his neck and tell him he did good, even though he didn't really, because what's the point of being mean to an ox? The walk back to the cottage feels longer than the walk out. Your legs are heavy. Your feet squelch in shoes that are more mud than leather at this point. The cold is settling in again, that deep, damp cold that gets into your bones and doesn't leave until May. The village is quieter now. Smoke rises from chimneys. Doors are closed against the chill. Somewhere, a baby is crying. Somewhere else, a dog is barking. The church bell rings for evening prayers, but you're too tired to go. Father William will scold you on Sunday. You'll survive it. Agnes meets you at the door. One look at her face tells you something is wrong. What happened? You ask. She doesn't answer right away. She pulls you inside, away from the cold, into the warmth of the cottage. The fire is going, a small miracle of hoarded fuel. The children are asleep already, curled together like puppies near the hearth. Your mother is awake, watching you with eyes that have seen too much. "It's Robert," Agnes says finally. "Old Robert. He collapsed in the field this afternoon. They carried him home, but—" She doesn't finish. She doesn't need to. You sit down heavily on the packed earth floor. Old Robert, who told stories about wars he'd survived and famines he'd outlasted, who claimed to have met the old king once, though nobody believed him, who was supposed to be proof that a peasant could live to 50, could beat the odds, could make it through. "How long?" you ask. Agnes shakes her head. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. His daughter's with him. You think about walking over there, paying your respects, saying goodbye to a man you've known your entire life. But your body won't move. Your legs have turned to stone, and there's nothing you can say to Robert that will change anything. Nothing anyone can say. Tomorrow, you tell yourself. You'll go tomorrow. Tonight you need to rest. Tonight you need to eat whatever scraps Agnes has managed to save. Tonight you need to hold your children and kiss your wife and try to remember that not everything in this world is cold and hard and cruel. Agnes brings you a bowl of pottage. It's thin, more broth than substance, with a few pieces of turnip floating in it. You eat it slowly, savouring each bite because this might be all there is. The fire crackles, the wind moans outside, the pig snores in the corner, and you sit there in your one-room cottage, surrounded by everyone you love, thinking about Robert and Geoffrey and the baby coming and the bread running out and the 1,000 other worries that never stop circling. This is medieval life, not the stories they tell about knights and castles and fair maidens. This, the mud and the hunger and the fear, the work that never ends and the death that's always waiting, the small joys that come between the suffering, like patches of sunlight on a cloudy day. You finish your pottage and set the bowl aside. Agnes leans against you, her head on your shoulder. Her belly presses against your arm, that new life growing inside her, oblivious to everything. "Do you think it'll be a boy or a girl?" she asks. You don't know. You don't care, really. You just want it to be healthy. You just want it to live. Whichever God sends, you say. She nods against your shoulder. The fire burns lower. The cottage grows darker. One by one, the others drift towards sleep, finding their places on the straw, pulling thin blankets over tired bodies. You should sleep too. Tomorrow will be just as hard as today, maybe harder if they're already calling you to the manor house. But for now, for this one moment, you just sit and watch the flames and try not to think about anything at all. The pig snorts in his sleep. Mary murmurs something, a child's half-formed dream. The wind picks up outside, rattling the door in its frame, and slowly, so slowly, your eyes begin to close. Old Robert died sometime in the night. You hear about it before dawn, when his daughter comes knocking at your door, her face wet with tears and exhaustion. She doesn't say much. She doesn't have to. The look on her face says everything. You dress quickly in the dark. The cottage is still sleeping around you, all those bodies breathing softly in the gloom. Agnes stirs but doesn't wake. You slip out into the cold morning air without saying goodbye. Robert's cottage is at the far end of the village, near the old oak tree that everyone says has been standing since before the Romans. The walk takes you past the church, where Father William is already awake, a candle flickering in his window. Past the blacksmith's forge, cold and silent. Past the well, where someone has left a bucket sitting in the mud. The door to Robert's cottage is open. Inside, it looks much like your own home. One room, packed earth floor, fire pit in the centre, smoke stains climbing the walls. But everything feels different now, heavier. The air itself seems to press down on you as you step through the doorway. Robert is lying on a pile of straw near the back wall. His eyes are closed. His hands are folded across his chest. Someone has placed a coin on each eyelid to keep them shut, to pay his passage wherever he's going next. His face looks peaceful, which surprises you. You've seen plenty of dead people, and most of them don't look peaceful at all. His daughter, Margaret, is sitting beside him. She's been sitting there all night from the looks of it. Her eyes are red and swollen. Her hands won't stop moving, twisting a piece of cloth over and over. He went easy, she says, just stopped breathing, didn't wake up. You nod. That's a good death. Better than most. Better than Harold with his rotting leg. Better than the children who coughed themselves to death last winter. Better than the ones the plague took, screaming and black and burning with fever. Still dead, though. You stay for a while. Other villagers trickle in as word spreads. John arrives, hat in hand. William comes with his wife. Even Geoffrey the Reeve stops by, which surprises everyone. He stands in the doorway for a moment, says something about Robert being a good worker, and leaves, as close to kindness as Geoffrey ever gets. Father William arrives last, carrying his Bible and his cross, and that expression priests get when death is involved. Part sorrow, part satisfaction. Death is when the church matters most. Death is when everyone remembers to be afraid of hell. He begins the prayers, and you bow your head with everyone else. The words wash over you, Latin phrases you don't understand, never have understood. The church speaks in a language none of you know, which seems about right. The church exists somewhere above you, making rules you must follow, demanding payments you can't afford, promising rewards you'll never see. Every tenth of everything you grow goes to the church. The tithe, they call it. God's share, and you pay it, because the alternative is damnation, eternal fire, suffering beyond imagining. The priests describe it in detail, the burning and the screaming and the demons with their pitchforks, and you believe them because what choice do you have? You can't read. Neither can anyone else in the village except Father William. The Bible might say anything. The priests might be making it all up. But how would you know? How would you ever know? So you pay your tithe. You attend Mass on Sundays. You confess your sins and do your penance and pray that when your time comes, you've done enough to earn your place in heaven. Robert was a good Christian. Everyone says so. Never missed a Sunday. Always paid what he owed. If anyone's going to paradise, it's him. But doubt gnaws at you anyway. The doubt they tell you is a sin. The doubt you're not supposed to feel. Robert was 50 years old, or so he claimed. Nobody really knows how old anyone is, not exactly. There are no records for people like you. No birth certificates, no official documents. You exist because people remember you exist. When the people who remember you are gone, it's like you were never here at all. 50 years. A full life by any measure. More than most can hope for. You wonder if you'll make it that long. The burial will happen later today, in the churchyard, next to Robert's wife who died 8 years ago, and his son who died as an infant 30 years before that. Father William will say words over the grave. People will cry, and then life will continue, because it always does, because it has to. You slip out while the prayers are still going. There's nothing more you can do here, and the manor house is waiting. The walk to the manor takes you through parts of the village you don't usually see, past the abandoned cottages on the east side, empty since the plague times, their roofs fallen in and their walls crumbling, past the small stream where women do the washing when the weather's warm enough, past the boundary stone that marks where the village ends and the Lord's private land begins. The road, if you can call it a road, is mostly mud and ruts. In summer it's not so bad. In winter, after the rains, it's a nightmare. Carts get stuck. Horses go lame. People have drowned in ruts deep enough to swallow them, or so the stories say. You've never travelled more than 5 miles from this village in your entire life. There's no reason to. Everything you need is here. And out there, beyond the familiar fields and forests, is nothing but danger. Bandits who prey on travellers, wolves that come down from the hills in hard winters, lords whose land you might cross without permission, which could get you hanged. And even if you avoided all that, there are no maps, no signs, no way to know where you're going or how to get back. People do travel, of course. Pilgrims heading to holy shrines, merchants moving goods from town to town, soldiers marching to war, but not people like you. People like you stay put. People like you are born in a place and die in the same place and never see anything in between. Your father went to the market town once, 20 miles away. It took him 3 days to get there and 3 days to get back, and he talked about it for years afterward. The buildings made of stone, the streets packed with people, the noise and the smell and the sheer overwhelming size of it all. He never went again, said once was enough. The manor house appears through the trees. It's the largest building you've ever seen. 2 stories tall, made of timber and stone, with glass windows that catch the weak winter light. Smoke rises from 3 different chimneys. A stable stands to one side, and you can hear horses moving inside, stamping and snorting. This is where the Lord lives. Sir Richard de Ashford, a man you've seen maybe a dozen times in your entire life. He's not cruel, as lords go, doesn't beat his peasants without reason, doesn't take more than the law allows, but he doesn't know you either, doesn't know your name or your face or anything about your life. To him you're just another pair of hands, just another body to work his fields and serve his feasts and pay his taxes. You join the other conscripted workers at the kitchen entrance. There's Agnes's cousin, Thomas, a boy from the next village over whose name you don't know, and a woman called Maud, older than you, with grey in her hair and a perpetual frown on her face. The cook puts you to work immediately, hauling water, splitting wood, carrying heavy sacks of flour from the storage shed to the kitchen. The work is different from the fields, but no easier. By mid-morning your arms are shaking and your back is screaming. At least it's warm inside. The kitchen is a chaos of heat and steam and shouting. Servants rush back and forth, preparing for the feast that's coming. You see food here that you've only ever dreamed about. Whole chickens, slabs of beef, fish that must have been brought from the coast. bread so white it looks like snow. Your stomach cramps with hunger just looking at it. But none of this is for you. None of this will ever be for you. You haul your water and split your wood and try not to think about how different life could have been if you'd been born into a different family. During a brief rest, you find yourself thinking about Agnes. You met her 8 years ago at a harvest festival. She was 15 then, and you were 20, and you remember thinking she was the prettiest girl you'd ever seen. Dark hair, quick smile, a laugh that made you want to hear it again and again. Getting married wasn't complicated. Not like it is for the nobles, with their contracts and dowries and political alliances. For peasants, marriage is simpler. You declare your intentions in front of witnesses. You move in together. That's it. That's the whole ceremony. Some people don't even bother with witnesses. Just say the words to each other and call it done. The church doesn't like that, of course. The church wants everything official, everything blessed, everything controlled. But what the church wants and what actually happens are often different things. You had witnesses, Agnes's father insisted. He didn't think much of you at first, this scrawny young man with no land of his own and nothing to offer but his labour. But Agnes wanted you, and Agnes was stubborn, and eventually her father gave in. The wedding night was awkward and fumbling and over too quickly. Neither of you knew what you were doing. The village women had told Agnes things, and the village men had told you things, but the reality was different from the telling. You figured it out eventually. You figure everything out eventually when there's no other choice. A year later, Edmund was born, alive and screaming and perfect. 2 years after that, another baby, a girl. She lived for 3 days, then stopped breathing in the night. You buried her in the churchyard, in a grave so small it barely seemed real. Then Mary came, healthy and strong. Then another pregnancy that ended in blood and pain before it really began. And now this one, growing inside Agnes right now, 4 months along and counting. The church says children are blessings, gifts from God, and maybe they are. But they're also gambles. Every pregnancy is a roll of the dice. Will the baby live? Will the mother survive the birth? Will there be enough food to feed another mouth? You've watched women die in childbirth. More than you can count. Agnes's own mother died bringing her youngest brother into the world. The brother died too a week later, and Agnes's father never remarried. Said once was enough. The midwife does what she can. Old Martha, the same woman who treats fevers and mends cuts, also delivers babies. She knows the herbs that ease labour pains. She knows how to turn a baby that's coming wrong. She knows the prayers to say when things go bad. But sometimes things go bad anyway. Sometimes the baby is too big. Sometimes the bleeding won't stop. Sometimes God just decides it's your time, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Every time Agnes gets pregnant, you spend 9 months terrified. She knows it too. She doesn't say anything, but you can see it in her eyes. The fear that this might be the last time. The quiet preparation just in case. She's already picked godparents for the new baby. Already told you where she wants to be buried if it comes to that. This is what being a woman means in this world. Your body belongs to your husband. Your purpose is to bear children. Your worth is measured by how many sons you produce, and every single time you do your duty, you risk your life. Agnes doesn't complain. None of the women do. What would be the point? This is just how things are. This is how things have always been. But sometimes, late at night, You hold her and feel her breathing against your chest and think about how unfair it all is. How she works just as hard as you do, harder maybe, and gets none of the credit. How she manages the household and raises the children and keeps everyone alive through sheer force of will. How the world treats her like property while she holds everything together. You can't change any of it. You're just a peasant. You can't change anything, but you can hold her. You can tell her she's doing well. You can make sure she knows that you see her, that you appreciate her, that you love her in whatever way a peasant is capable of loving. It's not enough. It's never enough. But it's something. The afternoon drags on. More water, more wood, more carrying and hauling and sweating. By evening you're so tired you can barely stand. The cook gives you a bowl of something grey and lumpy, leftovers from the servant's meal. You eat it without tasting it. Food is fuel. You stopped caring about flavour years ago. Then the long walk home in the gathering dark. The village is quiet when you arrive. Most people are already inside, hiding from the cold. Smoke rises from chimneys. A dog barks somewhere. The church bell rings for evening prayers, and this time you're too exhausted to feel guilty about missing them. Agnes is waiting for you at the door. She's been worried, you can tell. The manor house is only 2 miles away, but 2 miles might as well be 200 when it's dark and the roads are bad and anything could happen. You're back, she says. I'm back, you agree. She touches your face, your hands, checking for damage the way she always does. Robert's buried, she says, while you were gone. Father William did the service. Most of the village came. You nod. You're sorry you missed it. But the Lord's work doesn't wait for funerals. The Lord's work doesn't wait for anything. The children are asleep, she continues. I saved you some bread. It's not much. It's enough, you tell her. It's always enough. And you step inside, into the warmth, into the smoke and the smell and the cramped familiar comfort of home. The fire is low but still burning. The pig is snoring in his corner. Your mother is awake, sitting near the hearth, mending something by the faint orange light. She looks up when you enter, doesn't say anything, just nods once and returns to her work. 3 more days of this, you think. 3 more days at the manor house, and then back to the fields, back to the ploughing, back to the endless work that fills every hour of every day. But for now, for this moment, you're home, you're safe, you're warm. That's enough. For tonight, that's enough. The second day at the manor house brings something unexpected. A visitor arrives just after midday. A merchant travelling up from London with a cartload of goods for the Lord's feast. He's a short man with a belly that speaks of regular meals and a cloak that's actually waterproof. You've never owned anything waterproof in your life. The kitchen erupts into chaos when he arrives. The cook starts shouting orders. Servants run back and forth. You're put to work unloading the cart, which is heavy with barrels and crates and wrapped bundles that smell of spices you can't name. The merchant watches you work, picking his teeth with a small knife. Strong back on that one, he says to no one in particular. Shame about the rest of him. You don't respond. What would you say? He's right. You're thin and weathered and old before your time. Next to him, with his full cheeks and clean clothes, you look like something the dogs dragged in. But you're also curious. This man has been to London, the great city, the place your father talked about with wonder in his voice, the place that might as well be on the moon, for all the chance you'll ever see it. During a brief rest, while the merchant is distracted by the cook, you work up the courage to ask, "What's it like?" London? The merchant looks at you like you've sprouted a second head. Then he laughs. Not a cruel laugh exactly. More like the laugh of someone who's been asked something so absurd they can't help themselves. You want to know about London, he says. I'll tell you about London. It stinks. He sits down on an overturned bucket and gestures for you to come closer. First thing that hits you when you come through the gates is the smell, he says. You think your little village smells bad? Multiply that by 1,000. By 10,000. You've got 60,000 people packed into a space not much bigger than this manor and its fields. 60,000 people pissing and shitting and throwing their waste into the streets. You try to imagine it. You can't. There's a street near Newgate, he continues, called Stinking Lane. You know why they call it that? Because it stinks. The whole city stinks, but that street is special. The butchers work there. They throw the offal right into the road, guts and blood and bits of animals that didn't sell, and the rain washes it all down toward the river, but the river's just as bad. The Thames is brown with filth. People dump everything in there. Everything. He shakes his head, but there's something like pride in his voice. Like the filth of London is a badge of honour. The cesspits overflow every time it rains hard, he says. Backs right up into people's cellars. I know a man who woke up one morning with 6 inches of his neighbour's shit in his bedroom. True story. The houses are built so close together you can reach out your window and touch the wall next door. And everyone just dumps their chamber pots into the street. They're supposed to shout a warning first, but half the time they don't bother. You learn to walk down the middle of the road. You learn to look up. He pauses, scratches his chin. The public latrines are worse, he adds. Rows of seats over a pit. 12 people doing their business side by side. The smell would knock you flat. And when the pits fill up, they hire men to dig them out. Gong farmers, they're called. Work at night so decent folk don't have to see them. Worst job in the city. Maybe the worst job anywhere. Why does anyone live there, you ask? The merchant laughs again. Money, boy. Money and opportunity. A man can make his fortune in London if he's clever enough. The guilds, the trade, the connections. There's more gold moving through that city in a single day than your whole village will see in 100 years. He stands up, brushing off his cloak. But you'd never survive it, he says. Country folk like you, you're not built for the city. Too soft. You'd catch something and be dead within a month. You think about that for the rest of the afternoon. 60,000 people. You can't even picture that many. The largest gathering you've ever seen was maybe 200, at a Saints' Day festival when people came from villages all around. And that felt like a crowd. That felt overwhelming. What would it be like to walk through streets packed with strangers, to breathe air thick with smoke and waste, to drink water from a river brown with filth? The merchant is probably right. You wouldn't survive. But a small part of you wishes you could see it anyway. Just once. Just to know. The work continues. Hauling, carrying, scrubbing. The manor house has things you've never seen before. Actual beds, raised off the floor, with mattresses stuffed with feathers instead of straw. Tapestries on the walls to keep out the cold. Candles made from beeswax instead of tallow, which burn clean and bright and don't smell like burning fat. And the privy. The Lord's privy is a room unto itself. A small chamber at the back of the house, with a wooden seat over a hole that leads to a pit below. There's even a bucket of ash to throw down after you've done your business, to keep the smell manageable. You've been using a hole in the ground with rotting boards over it your entire life. The Lord has a room with a door. That closes. It shouldn't make you angry, but it does. Not a hot anger. Something colder. something that settles in your chest and sits there like a stone. You haul water for the Lord's bath. Yes, bath. The Lord bathes. Not every day, obviously. That would be excessive. But once a week, in a large wooden tub, with water heated over the kitchen fire and carried up the stairs bucket by bucket. By you. By other peasants just like you. The lady bathes too. Separately, of course, with scented oils that smell like flowers. Her maids add herbs to the water, and the whole upper floor smells sweet for hours afterward. You haven't had a proper bath in months. There's no time, no fuel to heat the water, no tub big enough. The stream is frozen half the year and frigid the rest. In summer you might wade in up to your waist and scrub yourself with sand. That's as close to bathing as you get. Most people you know smell like smoke and sweat and animals. You've stopped noticing. Your nose has given up. But here, in the manor house, surrounded by clean clothes and scented candles and people who bathe regularly, you become aware of yourself again. The grime under your fingernails, the matted quality of your hair, the sour tang that rises from your own body when you lift your arms. The servants look at you with barely concealed disgust. They're peasants too, technically, but they're house peasants, a different class. They sleep in the manor, they eat better food, they've forgotten what it's like out in the fields. One of them, a girl about Mary's age, wrinkles her nose when you pass. You say nothing. What's there to say? That evening, walking home in the dark, you think about the differences. The Lord has glass in his windows. You have shutters that let in the cold. The Lord has a chimney. You have a hole in the roof. The Lord has servants to empty his chamber pot. You have a pit in the ground. The Lord has medicine when he's sick. Physicians who come from the city. Treatments that cost more than you'll earn in a lifetime. You have old Martha and her herbs and prayers and luck, and yet you worship the same God. You say the same prayers. Father William tells you that all men are equal in the eyes of the Lord, that the meek shall inherit the earth, that suffering in this life will be rewarded in the next. Maybe that's true. But it's hard to believe it when you're hauling water for someone else's bath while your own children go to bed hungry. Home is quiet when you arrive. Agnes has saved you food again. A bit of bread, some cheese that's mostly rind. You eat standing up, too tired to sit, watching the fire burn low. How was it? She asks. You think about the merchant, the stories of London, the Lord's privy with its own room, the lady's scented bath. Fine, you say. Just work. She knows you're not telling her everything. She always knows, but she doesn't push. That's not her way. She waits, and eventually if you want to talk, you talk. Tonight, you don't want to talk. The children are asleep. Your mother is asleep. Agnes's brother and his family are asleep. The pig is snoring. The world outside is dark and cold and full of things that could kill you. But here, inside these thin walls, there's warmth. There's family. There's something that might be called peace, if you squint at it just right. You finish your bread and lie down on the straw. Agnes curls against you, her belly pressing into your back. The baby kicks, a flutter of movement you can feel through her skin. Still alive then, still growing, still on its way into this world that will try its best to destroy it. You close your eyes. 3 things wake you in the middle of the night. The first is the cold. The fire has died down to embers, and the temperature inside the cottage has dropped. Your breath fogs in the darkness. The second is the pig. He's restless, shifting and grunting in his corner, disturbed by something you can't see. The third is the sound of church bells, not the regular bells, not the morning call to prayer or the evening vespers. These bells are ringing fast and urgent, a pattern that every villager knows by heart. Something's wrong. You're on your feet before you're fully awake. Agnes is sitting up, her hand on her belly. The children are stirring. Your mother is already at the window, peering out through the gaps in the shutter. "What is it?" Agnes asks. You don't know, but nothing good ever follows those bells. You pull on your shoes and step outside. Other villagers are emerging from their cottages, drawn by the same sound. Faces pale in the moonlight, fear in every eye. Father William is running toward the church, his robes hiked up around his knees. "Fire!" someone shouts. "Fire at the miller's." You turn and look. On the far side of the village, orange light flickers against the sky. Smoke rises, darker than the darkness around it, and everyone starts to run. A fire in a village like this is everyone's problem. The cottages are packed close together. The roofs are thatch. If one goes up, they all might go up. You've heard stories of villages burned to nothing in a single night. Every house and barn and storage shed reduced to ash. You run faster than you've run in years. Your legs ache. Your lungs burn. But you keep going, because this is survival. Because if the fire spreads, your family has nowhere to go. By the time you reach the miller's cottage, half the village is already there. Men are passing buckets from the well, a human chain stretching across the darkness. Women are dragging children and animals away from the flames. The miller himself is standing in his doorway, his face black with soot, screaming about grain. You fall into line, grab a bucket, pass it forward, grab another, pass it forward. The heat is intense, even from 50 feet away. Sparks drift through the air like fireflies. One lands on your arm and burns before you can brush it off. Somewhere in the chaos, someone is praying. Someone else is crying. The miller's wife is on her knees in the mud, clutching a baby, rocking back and forth. It takes hours, hours of buckets and shouting and fear. Hours of watching the flames climb higher and then slowly start to die. By dawn, the miller's cottage is a smoking ruin. The roof is gone. The walls are blackened. Everything inside, the furniture, the clothes, the stored grain, all of it destroyed. But the fire didn't spread. The neighbouring cottages are scorched but standing. The village survives. You stand there as the sun comes up, covered in ash and sweat, your arms trembling with exhaustion. All around you, villagers are doing the same, staring at the destruction, thanking God it wasn't worse. The miller sits in the mud where his door used to be. He's not crying, he's not doing anything, just sitting there staring at nothing, his whole life turned to smoke. His wife is next to him now, still holding the baby. They'll have to rebuild from nothing, with winter still dragging on and spring planting coming fast. You think about offering help, but what help can you give? You have nothing to spare. None of you do. You're all one disaster away from ruin, always have been, always will be. Father William appears, picking his way through the debris. He lays a hand on the miller's shoulder and begins to pray. The words drift over you, familiar and hollow. God's will, he's saying. Everything happens for a reason. Trust in the Lord. Maybe the miller believes it. Maybe it helps. You turn away and start the long walk home. Agnes is waiting at the door. She's been up all night too, watching from a distance, unable to help because of her condition. You're safe, she says. It's not a question. I'm safe. She pulls you inside. helps you wash the soot from your face and hands, gives you water from the bucket by the fire. The children are asleep again somehow. Children can sleep through anything. Your mother is awake, sitting by the hearth, her lips moving in silent prayer. You sit down heavily on the packed earth floor. Your body wants to collapse. Your mind is still racing. Could have been us, Agnes says quietly. Could have been anyone, you reply. That's the truth of it. Fire doesn't care about good or bad, doesn't care about hard-working or lazy. It just burns, and when it's done burning, you pick up what's left and keep going. Because that's all you can do. That's all any of you can do. Outside, the sun is climbing. The village is stirring, people emerging from their cottages to survey the damage in daylight. There will be talk today, speculation about how the fire started, blame, maybe, gossip and prayers and offers of help that everyone knows won't amount to much. But that's for later. Right now, you need sleep. Just an hour or two before the manor house calls you back. You lie down on the straw, close your eyes, feel Agnes settle in beside you, and somehow, despite everything, you drift off. You sleep for 2 hours, maybe 3. Then it's back to the manor house, legs like lead, eyes gritty with exhaustion. The fire at the miller's doesn't change anything. The Lord still needs his feast. The guests are arriving today. The kitchen is pandemonium. Servants shout at each other across steaming pots. The cook, a red-faced woman named Marjorie, threatens to beat anyone who slows down. Dogs circle underfoot waiting for scraps. And the food. God, the food. You've never seen anything like it. A whole roasted boar, skin crackling, an apple stuffed in its mouth. Platters of roasted birds, some still wearing their feathers for decoration, arranged to look like they're still alive. Pies the size of cartwheels, their crusts golden and gleaming. Bowls of something creamy and white that you later learn is called blancmange. Fish and sauces that smell of things you can't name. Bread so pale it's almost glowing. And the waste. The unbelievable waste. Half-eaten haunches of meat. Bread with single bites taken from it. Fruit that's been fondled and rejected. The table groans with more food than your village sees in a year, and half of it will end up in the rubbish heap or the dog bowls. Your stomach cramps just looking at it. Back home, Mary has been asking for meat every night. Papa, when can we have meat? You make up stories. Soon. When the winter ends. When the chickens lay more eggs we can sell. Lies told to a 3-year-old who doesn't understand why her belly hurts. They put you to work carrying dishes, up the stairs through the great hall, to the long table where the Lord and his guests are gathered. You're not supposed to look at them. You're supposed to keep your eyes down, set the platter, step back, disappear. But you look anyway. Sir Richard sits at the head of the table dressed in velvet the colour of wine. His wife is beside him, wearing more jewellery than you've ever seen in one place. The guests are other nobles from the surrounding lands, men with soft hands and women with elaborate headdresses that must weigh more than your daughter. They're laughing, talking about hunting and horses and someone named Robert who apparently did something scandalous at court. Their voices are loud and careless, the voices of people who have never worried about where their next meal is coming from. You set down a platter of roasted duck. Step back. Wait. One of the guests reaches for a drumstick, takes a single bite and sets it aside. Not to his liking, apparently. He moves on to something else. That drumstick, that single discarded drumstick, could feed your family for a day. You watch it sitting there on his plate, untouched, cooling, destined for the dogs or the rubbish heap. and something twists in your chest. Not anger, exactly. Something deeper. Something that has no name because people like you aren't supposed to feel it. The feast goes on for hours, course after course, wine flowing like water, toasts and jokes and music from a minstrel in the corner. The nobles eat until they're stuffed, then retire to their chambers to sleep it off, then return for more. Meanwhile, you carry platters, you haul wine casks, you scrub pots in the kitchen while Marjorie screams about the gravy being too thin. At some point, someone shoves a bowl into your hands, scraps from the servant's table, a bit of bread soaked in grease, some gristle, a few vegetables that didn't make the cut. You eat it standing up, in a corner, out of sight. It's more meat than you've had in months. You feel guilty for enjoying it. That night, walking home, your legs finally give out. You don't fall exactly. You just stop. Lean against a fence post. Stand there in the darkness, unable to move, your body finally refusing to cooperate. How long you stay there, you don't know. Long enough for the cold to seep through your clothes, long enough to start shivering, long enough to wonder if this is it, if this is how it ends, if they'll find you frozen in the morning like old Walter 2 winters ago. But eventually something shifts, some reserve you didn't know you had. You push off from the fence and keep walking, one foot in front of the other. That's all it takes. That's all it ever takes. Agnes is asleep when you get home, so is everyone else. You slip inside without waking them, curl up on the straw, and close your eyes. Sleep comes fast and hard, like falling into a hole. You wake to the sound of crying. Not the children. Something else. A thin, high keening that cuts through the darkness and sets your teeth on edge. Agnes is already up, moving toward the sound. You follow, still half asleep, trying to make sense of what you're hearing. It's Edmund. Your son is huddled near the cold hearth, arms wrapped around his knees, rocking back and forth. His face is pale, his eyes are glassy, and when Agnes touches his forehead, she pulls her hand back like she's been burned. He's hot, she says, really hot. The word fever hangs in the air unspoken. You kneel beside him. Edmund, Edmund, can you hear me? He looks at you, but his eyes don't quite focus. His lips are moving, but no sound comes out. His whole body is trembling. How long has he been like this? I don't know, Agnes says. She's trying to stay calm, but you can hear the fear beneath the words. He was fine yesterday. He were playing with Mary yesterday. Fine yesterday. Sick today. Dead tomorrow. That's how fast it happens. That's how fast it always happens. You scoop Edmund up in your arms. He's lighter than he should be, thin from months of not quite enough food. His skin is burning through his clothes. Get Martha, you tell Agnes. Now. She's out the door before you finish speaking. You sit with Edmund in your lap, rocking him the way you did when he was a baby, whispering things that don't mean anything. It's okay. You're okay. Papa's here. Everything's going to be fine. Lies. All of it lies. But what else can you say? The others are awake now. Your mother, watching from across the room with that look she gets when she's preparing for the worst. Agnes's brother, keeping his own children away, afraid the sickness might spread. Mary, too young to understand, asking why Edmund won't play with her. The minutes stretch like hours. Finally, the door opens and Martha shuffles in. She's old, Martha. Nobody knows exactly how old. Her face is a map of wrinkles, her back bent from decades of work. But her eyes are sharp and her hands are steady, and she knows things that nobody else in the village knows. She crosses to Edmund without a word, presses a gnarled hand to his forehead, lifts his eyelids, checks his tongue. How long, she asks, since sometime in the night. Vomiting? Loose bowels? Agnes shakes her head. Just the fever. Martha grunts, reaches into the bag she carries everywhere, pulling out dried herbs and small clay pots. She works quickly, grinding and mixing, adding water from the bucket by the door. The room smells like plants, like forest, like something old and green. Drink this, Martha says, holding the mixture to Edmund's lips. All of it. He drinks, coughs, drinks more. You watch, helpless, useless. A father who can't protect his own child from something as simple as a fever. Keep him warm, Martha says. Make him drink. Water, broth, anything you can get into him. If he starts sweating, that's good. If he starts shaking harder, send for me again. Will he live? The question comes out before you can stop it. The question you're not supposed to ask, because asking it makes it real. Martha looks at you. Her eyes are tired. She's seen too much death to offer false comfort. Some do, she says, some don't. We'll know more by morning. And then she's gone, and you're alone with your son and your fear and the long night stretching out ahead. Agnes takes over. She always does in moments like this. Practical, focused, holding herself together through sheer force of will. She sends the others away, builds up the fire until the cottage is almost too warm, wraps Edmund in every blanket you own, sits beside him, feeding him spoonfuls of water, wiping his face with the damp cloth. You sit across the room and watch. There's nothing else you can do. Your hands, strong enough to plough fields and haul water, are useless here. Your body, built for labour, has no purpose. You can only sit and wait and pray to a God who may or may not be listening. The hours crawl by. Edmund sleeps, wakes, cries, sleeps again. His fever rises and falls like waves on a shore. Sometimes he seems better. Sometimes he seems worse. Sometimes you can't tell at all. Agnes doesn't sleep, doesn't eat, just keeps vigil, her hand on Edmund's chest, counting his breaths. Sometime past midnight, he starts to sweat. Martha said sweating was good. You cling to that. Sweating means the fever is breaking. Sweating means his body is fighting. Sweating means maybe, just maybe, he's going to be okay. By dawn, the worst seems to be over. Edmund's skin is cooler, his eyes are clearer. He asks for water in a voice that's weak but recognisable. The relief hits you like a physical blow. Your legs buckle. You have to grab the wall to keep from falling. Agnes is crying, quietly, face turned away, but crying. The tears she's been holding back all night finally let loose. You cross the room and wrap your arms around her, hold her while she shakes, let her bury her face against your chest. He's okay, you say. He's gonna be okay. For now. This time. But there will be other fevers, other nights like this one, other moments when you sit helpless and wait to see if your child will live or die. This is parenthood in this world. This is love. The constant fear that what you love most will be taken from you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. The sun comes up. The village stirs. Life continues. You should go to the manor house. The feast might still be going on. There might be more work. Geoffrey will expect you. But you don't move. Not yet. You sit by the fire with your son sleeping in your lap, and your wife leaning against your shoulder, and your daughter playing quietly in the corner. The pig snores. Your mother hums something tuneless while she mends a shirt. The smoke rises toward the hole in the roof. Just a few more minutes, you tell yourself. Just a little longer. The world outside can wait. The Lord can wait. The endless work can wait. Right now, in this moment, everyone you love is alive. Everyone is safe. Everyone is here. That's worth more than all the roasted boar in England. Eventually Agnes falls asleep against you. Her breathing slows. Her grip on your arm loosens. She's exhausted. She's been holding everything together for hours, and now that the crisis has passed, her body has simply shut down. You don't wake her. You sit there in the growing light, watching the fire burn, feeling Edmund's chest rise and fall. Outside you can hear the village coming to life, voices, footsteps, the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the rooster crowing late as always, annoyed that the sun beat him to it. Normal sounds, ordinary sounds, the sounds of another day beginning. You close your eyes, just for a moment, just to rest. The manor house can wait a little longer, just a little longer, and slowly, gently, the warmth of the fire and the weight of your family pull you down into something like sleep. You sleep through most of the day. When you wake, the cottage is quiet. Edmund is beside you, still sleeping, his breathing steady and even. The fever is gone. He's going to be all right. Agnes is not there. Your mother sees you looking around. She's gone to help the miller's wife, she says. Took Mary with her. Of course she did. Because that's what Agnes does. She takes care of everyone. Even after spending all night keeping your son alive, even while carrying another child inside her, she's out there helping someone else. You think about this sometimes. How much Agnes does that you never see. How much work happens in the corners and edges of the day, invisible and unacknowledged. She wakes before you, every single morning, starts the fire, heats whatever water there is, gets the children dressed, feeds the pig, mends clothes by candlelight when everyone else is asleep, manages the food stores, stretching what little you have across days and weeks, knows exactly how much flour is left, how many turnips, how long until you run out of salt. You work hard. God knows you work hard, but your work has boundaries. You go to the fields, you plough, you come home. There's a beginning and an end. Agnes's work never ends. It follows her from room to room, task to task, dawn to dark and beyond. And nobody thanks her for it. Nobody even notices it. It's just what women do. And that's the strange part. Women run the household. They keep everyone alive. But they own nothing. Not really. Everything belongs to the husband. The cottage, the tools, the pig, the meagre savings hidden in the wall. If you died tomorrow, Agnes would have nothing. She'd be at the mercy of your family, your lord, the church. Women can't inherit property, can't represent themselves in court, can't sign contracts or make deals. In the eyes of the law they barely exist at all. They're passed from father to husband like a cow or a plough, expected to work and breed and never complain. Agnes never talks about this. What would be the point? It's just how things are, how they've always been, how they always will be. But sometimes you catch her looking at Mary, and you wonder what she's thinking. What kind of life awaits your daughter? Will she marry well? Will her husband be kind? Will she survive childbirth? Will she find any happiness at all in a world that sees her as property? These are not questions you can answer, so you push them away. Edmund stirs beside you, opens his eyes, looks around with that confused expression children have when they wake up somewhere unexpected. Papa? Hey. You smooth the hair from his forehead. How do you feel? Hungry? You almost laugh. Hungry? After everything, after the fever and the terror and the endless night, your son is hungry. Children are amazing. They bounce back from things that would break an adult. Let's find you something to eat. Your mother has saved some of yesterday's pottage. It's cold and congealed, but Edmund doesn't care. He eats like he hasn't seen food in days, which isn't far from the truth. You watch him eat and think about how close you came to losing him. How easily it could have gone the other way. How fragile everything is. Not helpful thoughts. Push them away. Focus on now. Agnes returns near sunset, Mary riding on her hip. The miller's situation is bad. His cottage is destroyed. His stored grain ruined by the fire and the water used to fight it. His wife is in shock, barely speaking. Their 3 children are staying with neighbours until something can be figured out. His name is Thomas. You've known him all your life. Played together as children. Watched each other grow up, get married, start families. And now you've watched him lose everything in a single night. The village is rallying. That's what villages do. People are donating what they can, which isn't much, but it's something. A few extra blankets, some dried meat. Promises to help rebuild when the weather turns. John's wife is feeding the children. The blacksmith has offered Thomas work until the mill is running again. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's what you have. Father William is organising a collection, asking everyone to give a little extra to the church, which will then distribute it to the miller's family. Some people grumble about this. The church already takes 1/10 of everything. Now they want more? But what choice is there? The miller can't survive without help, and if the miller fails, the whole village suffers. He's the one who grinds the grain. Without him, there's no bread. Without bread, there's no life. So people give, because that's what you do. Even when you have nothing, you find something to share. Agnes puts Mary down and crosses to Edmund. Kneels beside him, touches his forehead, his cheeks, his chest, checking, making sure. He's better, you say. She nods, doesn't speak, just pulls him into a hug and holds him for a long time. That night, dinner is thin. Thinner than usual. Agnes gave some of your food to the miller's wife. She didn't tell you beforehand, didn't ask permission, just did it. You should be angry. You're barely surviving as it is. Every mouthful matters. Giving away food is giving away your family's life. You're not angry. You understand. 'Cause that's Agnes. She sees someone hurting and she helps, even when it costs her, even when it costs all of you. Besides, tomorrow it could be you. Tomorrow your cottage could burn. Tomorrow you could be the one standing in the ashes with nothing left. And you'd want someone to help you, wouldn't you? That's the thing about being poor. You learn to share. Not because you're saints, but because you know how fast everything can fall apart. Today you help your neighbour. Tomorrow your neighbour helps you. That's the only safety net there is. After the children are asleep, Agnes sits by the fire. She's quiet, tired. Her hands rest on her belly, the slight curve that will soon be impossible to hide. 4 months along now, maybe a bit more. Hard to know for certain. Women keep track of these things in their own ways, counting moons and feeling for changes that men can't understand. The baby moves, she says softly. I felt it today, just a flutter, like a fish. You move closer, sit beside her. Don't know what to say, so you don't say anything. Just put your hand over hers. She leans against you. Her body is warm. Her breathing is slow. I'm scared, she says. I know. My mother died having me. Did I ever tell you that? I never knew her. I've seen her grave, but I never knew her. You knew. She's mentioned it before, in dark moments, in quiet moments like this one. It's the fear that lives inside her. The fear that lives inside every woman who's ever been with child. Childbirth is dangerous. You've seen it. The women who bled too much. The babies who came out wrong. The ones who took days to deliver and didn't survive the process. Old Martha does what she can, but sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes nothing is enough. Martha has prayers, generations of knowledge passed down from mother to daughter, but she has no way to stop bleeding once it starts, no way to turn a baby that's stuck the wrong way, no magic to make. Everything all right? The physicians in the towns are no better. Worse, probably. They charge money you don't have to taste your pee and tell you your humours are unbalanced. Then they bleed you with leeches and call it treatment. Half the time, the cure kills faster than the disease. No, if Agnes is going to survive this birth, it'll be because God wills it. Or luck. Or pure stubbornness. You'll be all right, you say. You've done this before. Twice. 3 times, she corrects quietly. The one we lost. Right. 3 times. There's nothing else to say. No comfort you can offer that isn't hollow. The truth is you're scared too. Every pregnancy is a gamble. Every birth is a battle. And there's nothing you can do to help. Nothing except be there and pray and hope it's enough. The fire crackles, settles, sends up a shower of sparks. If something happens to me, Agnes says, you'll take care of them. The children, nothing's going to happen. But if it does, you look at her, her face in the firelight, the woman you married 8 years ago, the girl who laughed at harvest festivals and danced barefoot in the stubble fields. She's older now, tired, worn down by years of work and worry and making do with too little. But she's still beautiful to you, still the best thing in your life. I'll take care of them, you say, but you're not going anywhere. You hear me? You're too stubborn to die. She laughs. Just a small sound, more breath than voice, but real, human, alive, stubborn. That's one word for it. You sit together in silence, watching the fire die down, feeling the cottage cool around you. Tomorrow there will be work. There's always work. The fields need tending. The Lord needs serving. The miller's cottage needs rebuilding. Life doesn't stop for fear or exhaustion or grief. But tonight, there's just this. The fire, the quiet, the warmth of your wife beside you. She falls asleep first. Her head droops against your shoulder. Her breathing deepens. You don't move. Don't want to wake her. Just sit there, holding still, letting her rest. Outside, the night is dark. Clouds cover the stars. Somewhere in the village, a dog barks once and falls silent. Then, from far away, another sound. A howl, long and low, rising and falling in the darkness. Wolves. They've been getting bolder this winter. Hunger makes everything bolder. The shepherds have lost 3 sheep in the past month, throats torn out in the night. Old William claims he saw a pack at the edge of the forest, watching the village with yellow eyes. The howl comes again. Closer this time. Or maybe that's just your imagination. The cottage walls feel thin. The door feels flimsy. You think about the children sleeping, defenceless. You think about the pig, which would be an easy target. You think about all the darkness out there, full of things you can't see and can't fight. But there's nothing to do, nowhere safer to go. The wolves are out there, and you're in here, and all you can do is hope the walls hold. This is how it always is. Danger everywhere. Wolves in the forest, disease in the air, fire waiting to spark, the Lord waiting to take what little you have, death around every corner, patient and relentless, and yet you sleep. Somehow, despite everything, you close your eyes and sleep. Because what else can you do? You can't fight the wolves, Can't fight the cold, can't fight the world. All you can do is rest when you can and face whatever comes in the morning. You think about the miller, standing in the ruins of his home, watching everything he owned turn to ash. You think about old Robert, buried in the churchyard now, his life of labour finally done. You think about Edmund, so small and hot with fever, fighting something you couldn't see. So much can go wrong, so much does go wrong. Every day is a battle against hunger, cold, sickness, accident. The world is not kind to people like you. It takes and takes and takes, and all you can do is hold on. But you do hold on. That's the thing. Despite everything, you keep going. You wake up each morning and do what needs to be done. You plant seeds you might not live to harvest. You bring children into a world that might kill them before they learn to walk. Stubbornness, Agnes calls it. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's all any of you have. The sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up. The fire is almost out now. Just embers glowing in the darkness. The cold is creeping in, slow and patient. You should add more wood. Should bank the fire for the night. Should carry Agnes to the bed and cover her with blankets. But not yet. Not just yet. A few more minutes of this. A few more minutes of stillness. Let the world wait. Let the morning wait. Right now, there's nothing to do and nowhere to be. Your eyes are heavy. Your body aches. The straw beneath you is rough and thin, nothing like the featherbeds in the manor house, but it's yours. This place is yours. These people are yours, and that's enough. Somehow, despite everything, that's enough. Edmund coughs in his sleep. Just once. A small sound that makes your heart jump before you realise it's nothing. He rolls over, mumbles something, goes quiet again. Mary is curled up next to her grandmother, both of them snoring softly. Agnes's brother and his family are huddled in their corner, a tangle of arms and legs. Everyone here, everyone alive, everyone safe for one more night. You close your eyes. The darkness is soft, welcoming. The sounds of the cottage are familiar. Breathing, snoring, the pig shifting in its corner, the creak of old wood settling. This is your life. This cold cottage, this hard work, this constant fear. But also this, these people, this warmth, this stubborn, fragile hope that keeps you getting up each morning. Maybe that's what life is. The good and the bad all tangled up together. You can't have one without the other. Can't have love without fear of loss. Can't have home without the work it takes to keep it. The fire goes out. The last ember fades to black. But the darkness isn't frightening. Not tonight. Tonight it feels like a blanket settling over you, pulling you down into rest. Sleep, the darkness seems to say. Sleep now. Tomorrow will come soon enough, with all its work and worry. But for now, sleep. And so you do. Slowly, gently, you let go. Let your thoughts drift. Let your body relax. Let the weight of the day fall away. Agnes shifts against you, murmuring something in her dreams. You pull her closer, feel her heartbeat against your arm. 2 hearts. 3, if you count the one growing inside her. 4, if you count the children in the corner. A whole family of hearts, beating together in the darkness. That's something. That's more than something, that's everything. You wake in the dark, not morning dark, middle of the night dark, that deep black where you can't see your hand in front of your face. This happens sometimes. Everyone wakes in the night. The old folks call it the watch, that quiet hour or two between first sleep and second sleep, when the world is still and your thoughts are loud. Agnes is still beside you, breathing slow. The children haven't moved. The cottage is silent except for the usual sounds. Snoring, the pig, Wind outside. You lie there, staring at nothing, waiting for sleep to come back. Your grandfather used to talk about the watch, said it was the best time for thinking, said the saints did their praying in the watch when God was closest, said the night had a wisdom the day didn't know. Your grandfather said a lot of things. He was old when you knew him. Ancient, really. Must have been close to 60 when he died, which is almost unheard of. His body was bent and his hands were twisted and his mind wandered sometimes, slipping between now and then like water through fingers. But he remembered the plague, not the one 40 years ago, the one that killed your father's family, an earlier one, the big one, the one that killed half of everything. He was a child when it came, 7, maybe 8, too young to understand what was happening, old enough to remember. He told you stories, late at night, when the fire's low and your parents were sleeping, whispered them like secrets, like confessions, like things he needed to say before he died. The bodies, he said. There were so many bodies, piled in the streets because there was nobody left to bury them, thrown in pits, dozens at a time, covered with lime and dirt. The smell, he said. You could smell the death from miles away. The sickness came fast. A person could be fine in the morning and dead by nightfall. First came the swellings, lumps the size of eggs in the armpits, the groin, the neck, black and hard and filled with blood. Then the fever, the vomiting, the bleeding from places blood shouldn't come from. There was no cure. The physicians were useless. They wore strange masks filled with herbs, thinking the smell would protect them. It didn't. They died like everyone else. People went mad. Some thought it was the end of the world. Some thought God was punishing them for their sins. They whipped themselves bloody in the streets, hoping the pain would make it stop. It didn't. Others blamed the Jews, said they'd poisoned the wells. Whole communities were burned alive as if killing innocents would somehow stop the plague. It didn't do that either. The plague kept coming. It didn't care about blame or punishment or prayers. Others gave up, stopped working, stopped praying, stopped caring. If they were going to die anyway, why not drink and dance and enjoy what time was left? The taverns were full even as the graveyards overflowed, and some people just ran, packed up whatever they could carry and fled to the countryside, hoping to outrun the sickness. Sometimes it worked, usually it didn't. The plague travelled faster than feet. Your grandfather's whole family died. His mother, his father, 3 brothers, 2 sisters, one by one, over the course of a summer, until he was the only one left. He survived because a neighbour woman took him in, fed him, kept him hidden during the worst of it. He never knew why she chose him, never knew why he lived and everyone else died. Luck, he said. Just luck. The plague didn't care who was good or bad, rich or poor. It took who it took and left who it left, and there was no pattern to any of it. You think about that sometimes. The randomness of it all. How easily your grandfather could have died. How easily you would never have existed. Strange, the threads that hold a life together. So thin, so easily cut. The wind picks up outside. You hear it rattling the door, whistling through the cracks in the walls. Cold seeps into the cottage, slow and steady, finding every gap. Winter is loosening its grip, slowly, grudgingly, but loosening. The days are getting longer. The ice is starting to melt. In a few weeks, maybe less, the ground will be soft enough to plough. Spring. The word itself feels like hope. After months of cold and dark and hunger, the world is waking up again. The trees will bud. The birds will return. The earth will turn green and generous, offering up food you desperately need. You've noticed the signs already. The robin that landed on the fence post yesterday, the snowdrops pushing up through the frozen ground near the church, the way the sun lingers a little longer each evening before giving up. Nature is relentless. You've learned that. No matter how hard the winter, no matter how many die, the spring always comes. The world doesn't care about human suffering. It just keeps turning. The seasons keep changing. Life keeps pushing forward. There's comfort in that somehow. The knowledge that you're part of something bigger. Something that was here before you and will be here long after. The same sun that warmed your grandfather warms you now. The same rain that fed his crops feeds yours. You're connected to the land in a way that the nobles in their manor houses will never understand. They own it, but you know it. Every field, every stream, every patch of forest. You've walked these paths your whole life. Your father walked them, his father before him. Of course, spring also means work. Back-breaking, endless work. Ploughing and planting and hoping the rain comes at the right time and the sun shines at the right time and nothing goes wrong. Something always goes wrong. But for now, in this quiet hour, you let yourself feel something like anticipation. The worst of winter is behind you. You made it. Your family made it. Edmund recovered from his fever. Agnes is healthy, the baby growing inside her. The cottage is still standing. Small victories, but victories all the same. Your mind drifts to the festivals, not many of them, and always tied to the church calendar, but they break up the monotony. Christmas, Easter, midsummer, harvest home. Days when work stops and the village gathers and there's food and drink and music and laughter. You remember last harvest home. The whole village in the fields, cutting the last of the wheat, the smell of fresh-cut stalks and warm earth, the sound of scythes swishing, voices calling, children shrieking with joy, then the feast in the Lord's barn, tables groaning with bread and meat and ale, more food than you'd seen in months, more than you'd see for months after, real meat, roasted pork with crackling skin, bread made from white flour, soft and light as clouds, apple cider so sweet it made your teeth ache. There was music. Old Peter with his fiddle, scratching out the same tunes his father played, and his father before him. Dancing in the barn, couples spinning and laughing, dust rising from the floor like golden smoke in the torchlight. Agnes was there, her belly just starting to show. Mary was running around with the other children covered in dirt and laughing. Edmund was trying to keep up, his little legs pumping, falling and getting up and falling again. You sat on a hay bale and watched them and felt something close to peace. You remember the taste of that ale, the warmth of the barn, the way Agnes looked at you across the room and smiled, the sound of your daughter's laugh, high and pure and unself-conscious. Not happiness exactly. Happiness is too big a word for people like you. But contentment maybe. Satisfaction. The quiet pleasure of a moment when nothing is wrong. Those moments are rare, but they happen. Even in a life like yours they happen. You hold on to them. Store them up like grain for the winter. Pull them out in the dark hours when everything seems hopeless. They're proof that good things exist. Proof that the world isn't only suffering. Your grandfather understood that. Despite everything he'd seen, everything he'd lost, he found reasons to keep going. He planted gardens and told stories and bounced grandchildren on his knee. He laughed at things that weren't funny and cried at things that were. He lived, fully and stubbornly, until the day he stopped. Maybe that's the secret. There is no secret. You just wake up each morning and do what needs doing and look for the small good things and try not to think too hard about the rest. Agnes stirs beside you. Her hand finds yours in the darkness. "Can't sleep," she murmurs. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Everything. Nothing. The past. The future." She squeezes your hand. "Go back to sleep. Morning comes early, I know. But neither of you move. You just lie there, holding hands, listening to the wind and the snoring and the quiet. This is good, you think. This moment right here. The warmth of her beside you. The sound of your children breathing. The knowledge that you're not alone. In the morning there will be work. The Lord's fields. The village helping to rebuild the miller's cottage. The endless round of tasks that fill every waking hour. Your back will ache and your hands will crack and your stomach will growl. But right now there's just this. Darkness and quiet and the woman you love and the family you've built. You're 28 years old. 28. That's not nothing. A lot of people don't make it this far. Your father didn't. Your baby sister didn't. Half the people you grew up with are in the churchyard now, their lives cut short by disease or accident or childbirth. You remember their names. All of them. Thomas, who drowned in the mill pond at 6. Little Sarah, who caught fever and never woke up. William's boy, crushed under an ox cart. The twins from the edge of the village, dead within a week of each other, though nobody knew why. Every family has a list like this. Children who didn't make it past their first winter. Mothers who bled out on the birthing bed. Fathers who fell sick at harvest and were buried before the snow. It's normal. It's life. You don't think about it most days because what would be the point? The dead are dead. You can't change that. All you can do is keep living. But in the quiet of the watch, in the dark hours when your defences are down, you feel the weight of all those lost lives, the emptiness where they should be, the silence where their voices used to sound, and you feel too the strangeness of your own survival. Why you and not them? Why are you still breathing when so many aren't? There's no answer to that. Your grandfather knew it. Luck, he said. Just luck. But you're here, still breathing, still fighting, still stubborn enough to keep waking up every morning. Maybe that's something to be proud of. Maybe just surviving is an achievement in a world that's trying so hard to kill you. Agnes's breathing slows. She's falling back asleep. Her hand still in yours. You close your eyes. The darkness is comfortable now, familiar. The watch is ending and second sleep is coming, and soon it will be morning again. But not yet. Not quite yet. Let the night last a little longer. Let the world stay quiet. Let the warmth of this moment stretch out just a few more breaths, a few more heartbeats. Your grandfather was right. The watch has a wisdom to it, a stillness that the day doesn't allow. Time to think, time to feel, time to remember what matters. Family, home, the people who share your table and your burdens, the neighbours who help when disaster strikes, the small kindnesses that make life bearable. The plague taught your grandfather that. Losing everyone taught him how precious everyone is. He held tight to the people he found after, loved them fiercely, mourned them deeply when they died. You understand now. You understand why he told you those stories. Not to frighten you, not to burden you, but to remind you. Life is short. Life is fragile. Love what you have while you have it. You squeeze Agnes's hand one more time. Feel her squeeze back, already half asleep. I love you, you think. But you don't say it out loud. You don't need to. She knows. After 8 years, 2 children, 3 pregnancies, 1,000 hardships, she knows. The wind dies down outside. The cottage settles into silence. You let yourself drift. Let your thoughts scatter like leaves. Let the heaviness in your limbs pull you down, down, into that soft space between waking and sleeping. Tomorrow will be hard. Tomorrow is always hard. But you'll face it the way you've faced everything else. 1 foot in front of the other, 1 day at a time. You'll wake before dawn, muscles stiff, bones aching. You'll eat whatever thin breakfast there is and walk to the fields in the half-light. You'll work until your back screams and your hands bleed and the sun sets red over the western hills. And then you'll come home, to this cottage, to these people, to the smell of pottage and the sound of children and the warmth of Agnes beside you in the dark. That's the rhythm of your life. Work and rest, struggle and peace, pain and love, over and over, until one day the pattern breaks and you join the others in the churchyard. But that day isn't today. That day isn't tomorrow. That day might be far off, or it might be close, but it isn't now. Now there's just this, the quiet, the dark, the sound of your family breathing around you. And maybe, if you're lucky, there will be another moment like this one. A quiet hour, a warm hand, a reminder that the darkness always ends. Spring is coming. Hold on to that. The last thing you feel before sleep takes you is Agnes's heartbeat against your palm, steady and slow, a rhythm you've known for years, a rhythm you'll know until one of you stops. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not yet. For now, you're both here, in this cold cottage, in this hard world, together. And that's everything. That's all any of us really have. Spring comes slow, then all at once. One morning you wake and the air smells different. Softer, warmer. The frost that's been coating the ground every dawn is gone, replaced by mud and the first brave shoots of green. The village feels different too. Lighter. People are moving faster, talking more, shaking off the winter sluggishness like dogs shaking off water. There's work to be done. Real work. The kind that feeds you instead of just serving the Lord. Today, for the first time in months, you're working your own strips. 3 narrow bands of land in the great field, scattered among the other villagers' strips so nobody gets all the good soil or all the bad. It's not much. Barely enough to feed a family if everything goes right. Everything never goes right. But you try anyway. The plough is heavy. Brownie is stubborn. The soil is still cold, resisting the blade, fighting you every inch. Your shoulders burn. Your back protests. Sweat drips into your eyes despite the cool morning air. The smell of turned earth rises around you, rich and dark and alive. There's nothing else like it. City people don't know this smell. Nobles don't know it. Only people who work the land, who push their hands into the dirt and coax life from nothing. Birds are singing somewhere. Not the crows yet, but smaller birds, the ones that come back with the warmth. Their songs are everywhere, filling the morning air, celebrating the end of winter in their own way. But God, it feels good. This is yours. Not the Lord's wheat or the Lord's barley or the Lord's vegetables for the Lord's table. This is food for your children, grain that will become bread in your cottage. Something you can point to and say, I made that. I grew that. That exists because of me. There's pride in that. A small, stubborn pride that the nobles will never understand. They have their titles and their castles and their fine clothes, but they've never felt this. Never stood in a field they ploughed themselves and watched the seeds they planted push up through the earth. That's yours. That's something they can't take. Edmund is with you today. too young to really help, but old enough to try. He walked